great question just came up. It's not that unusual for claimants to sometimes be in college or they want to pursue college. And the question was, will attending college part-time be a deal breaker for a disability claim? SSD or SSI. I know colleagues will disagree on this. I think the way I see it, and I think why there's disagreement, is that it's the risk tolerance of different representatives. Some representatives want nothing to occur that would potentially, even if not actually, reduce the potentiality of prevailing. I don't feel that way only because I think if you astutely look at the details of the schooling, the nature of the impairments that the person is claiming disables them and to what degree it disables them, looking at their past relevant work, looking at their medical treatment records and what's supported already. If you look at the whole picture and all the details that make up the whole picture of the person, and obviously this does not happen overnight, but you can get a general sense of it with several pointed questions. Part-time college does not need to be a big risk factor. I have personally never had a client denied with any mention of any college attendance being part of the answer, ever. So, however, I do know that other people have had the mention of college in their denial letters after ALJ hearing. So, they just weren't my people. So I would say what I find to be typical, and in my experience, so I'm sure there can be other experiences out there, when it is part-time college, or full-time, actually. Full-time, one would like to argue that, well, full-time college is not the same as a full-time job, and I agree. And if it's a physical impairment and not a mental impairment, then even more so, one would argue that the full-time college does not mean they can work full-time. First of all, you're not sitting in a classroom for 40 hours a week, right? Each credit, and what do you have? 12 credits? Unless you're going really heavy, like 16 credits, is 12 hours, I think. Isn't it like an hour in class per credit? Am I remembering correctly? It's been Stone Age for me. But so if you are actually going brick and mortar college, like, full time, they're going to be looking at the fact that you get up and get there. And again, certain impairments, you might have been representing that you couldn't do such a thing if it was work, but you could do it for school. So that's all going to come into play. However, it doesn't necessarily mean a downfall. It really depends on the situation. So you have to really vet it out. 12 hours in the classroom a week. And then if you have, I don't know I don't think they call them IEPs in college. I think it's more of an accommodation. I would suggest that if you have difficulties with for physical or mental reasons getting things done necessarily on the time frame of someone else, or attending class at a specific time, that you have an accommodation already laid out for you. If that is something that would be an obvious need based on the claims you make in your disability claim. An accommodation from the school, I'm sure most of them are very, very accommodating. So you would want that officially recognized. So you have something in writing to show, yes, I go to college. If you're doing it full time, here are my accommodations. I get, an extra 2 weeks for every assignment. Or if I can't, I get more absences allowed to me, Now, if it's if you're largely mentally limited, and that's why you say you can't work a full-time job, even a simple sedentary 5th grade level low stress job, then that might not float that full-time college so much. If you end up failing out, that might actually help your case. Do you see what I'm saying? If it's the mental, and it depends on what kind of mental impairment you have. I mean, if it's social phobia and you're doing internet college, which a lot of people do nowadays, my husband did it. The social phobia is not going to be so implicated because you don't have to deal with the social setting. If it's stress related, I mean, it's really going to depend. I would have accommodations set up with that school regardless. If you have any kind of impairments, physical or mental, that would make it overly burdensome and an over challenge, the challenge itself could actually stress you out. And potentially, if stress is something that detracts from your health and your medical issues, that would be an important thing to get laid out with your school and get official accommodation. But by and large, when I've had people with physical only issues, and usually these were younger people, college wasn't a problem, but it was, we had a note from one teacher, and this person was attending physically. And he actually wrote a letter saying, yeah, she gets up and she actually has to go out and take breaks. Sometimes she goes to the back of the classroom. Sometimes she leaves the classroom. And I allow it because I know what her problem is, her medical problem. That's worth its weight in gold. That's a really huge piece of evidence that can really help a case because it shows the inability to meet the durational sitting in one spot. Like usually it's a 2-hour attention span thing that they refer to on the job because you get a break, in the middle of the 4 hours. Those kind of little nuggets can be really helpful because they're from an objective person that really has no interest in you or your case. They're just doing the right thing and telling the truth. And it's only by documentation, a letter. They don't have to come in and testify or anything like that. If you have severe learning disabilities and you're going to college, that's going to throw up a red flag, of course. But if you have accommodations, you get tutors, you have an aide maybe that attends with you. There's so many ways that this can, because I don't want to see people not going to college when they want to try, right, and get a skill. And again, I've never seen it fly south, although I know it has for other people. So that's why I'm putting this out here. Obviously, part-time is going to be more palatable, perhaps to a fact finder than full-time. Although again, I would argue full-time is not a 40-hour work week. Because college studying can be done at your own time frame. Like if you have a class from 10 to noon, you could be studying at 7 o'clock at night after a big, huge break where you're resting and taking care of yourself and all that. So there's, even if we say there's 20, 25 hours of time put in for full-time college, it doesn't mean that you're doing them in 8-hour shifts. It can be broken up. You can do it when you feel good, when you're not feeling good, for the studying part. If it's online, a lot of times the classes are taped. You don't have to sit in a live class. That is really, helpful to a lot of people with disabilities. They can pick and choose when they're feeling their best, when they're most alert, when they're not in pain, when they're not drugged out from pain drugs. There's many ways to address it, but you have to, I think, address it. If it were me and my client, and I haven't really seen this much lately, I don't know why. I just haven't seen a lot of people going to college in the last year or two. Maybe it's a COVID thing, post-COVID. But I would probably get like an SSA-795 form where the client actually describes all the things that make college doable that do not implicate being able to work in a standard job that exists in substantial numbers in the economy on a full-time basis. I would get that information. If I was a representative, I would draft it up according to what the client is telling me and then present it to him. If this is true, do you want to certify to this? And we'll send it up as a description of you know, the limitations of the college and how much it's not so much demanding of you. And again, of course, if you fail out, get that transcript, particularly if you fail out right from the start. um, yeah, and of course, if there's a professor letter or an adjunct professor who, even if it's not an accommodation officially, but sees what you need, and has been accommodating you privately, letting you take a walk around the classroom, go to the back, stretch, leave the room, many potty breaks, whatever. That could be helpful too. So there's a lot of different ways to not let college hurt you. It just means more effort, and you're a part and part of your representative. So anyway, I wanted to share that because, I love it when I see people who have disabilities trying to get greater skills so that they can find that job, they can self-sustain. They by and large don't want to be on disability. So it's one way that can help them. Or if they are on disability, at least they have a job part-time that's really skills that they learned how to do, even if they're only going to be able to perform it part-time and under SGA later on. Okay. And I don't think judges take poorly to this. They're I think they want to see people furthering themselves, using their brains, learning things, and becoming productive, even if it's, working part-time while on disability. They all went to college, presumably, so I believe that they encourage you to too. But you just have to do it smart, and you have to make sure that the actual facts are out there in a way that can be admissible, um, in the SSA setting. Okay. All righty. Hope that helps, guys. Bye.